Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today I will be doing a Weiss Schwarz deck profile. This is going to be my Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card Reflect deck profile, which is a nice little mechanic that I actually like that this set introduced. I think it's kind of an interesting choice to have in our current meta. So the way I'm going to do this is that I'm going to go through all of the cards. I'm going to go through like my ratios, why I added the card in, what I think about some of the effects, and then at the end we will talk about some combos you can do and things I like about the deck and things that I don't like about the deck. So let's go ahead and get our first card out here. Let me just fix my focus because for some reason this camera does not do super hot when it comes to focusing on what I want it to. Okay, so the first card is going to be a Sakura card. This is going to be your level 0 yellow main beating card, because when you play this card from your hand, you mill the top two cards of your deck. If there's a climax among them, this card gets plus 2,000 power for the turn, which is really useful for just running things over. The deck doesn't really have a lot of power built into it, so it relies on this card to be able to get over just huge level 0s, as well as with some back support, can get over a lot of things. So this is pretty solid. It can even actually get over some level 1s if you mill that climax and then have some back row support. So it's just a really good way of getting some power out. Also, it has that second ability, which is really good, where you can pay 1 stock and then put the top card of your deck into your clock, and you get to salvage a level 0 or a level 1. And this can be very important for when you're kind of just picking out exactly what you need. So sometimes you're going to need like some sort of level 0 utility card. It helps you set up for the level 1 combo, because if you have it in your waiting room, then you need to fish it out somehow. This is a good way of getting it out because it can fish out level 1s. And then I forgot to mention for the top effect, it's really good because this deck relies, part of the deck anyways, relies on things being in the waiting room, like the change effect, the brainstorm is a salvage brainstormer. So to be able to put things into the waiting room is just a great way of milling. It's a great way of, if you're out of climaxes, just getting through your deck a little bit faster for free. So this is just a really solid card to have at level 0, and I play 4 copies of this card here. Next card that we're going to play 4 copies of is the Sakura Athletic. This is going to be the level 0 trial deck free runner, and then when this card attacks, you choose one of your characters and give it plus 500 power until the end of turn. So this just allows for a little bit of extra power boost. Again, the deck doesn't do very well at level 0 because it doesn't really have a lot of running over ability, and it's free run, which is good because you kind of need to save your stock in this deck. And yeah, I like this card because it also fixes my red ratio, because without this card my red ratio goes down a lot. There's not a lot of other red stuff I'd like to clock in its place. So this is just a really good option, and it's exactly what you want to open into if you are going first, which is preferred. So because of that, I play 4 copies of this. Because, again, just with the level 0 game, like, you want it to play itself, and you want it to have a lot of utility. So you want to run 4-ofs for quite a few of the things, especially if you need to open with it, because odds are you want to open into at least 1 copy of it. And that's really all you need if you are going first. Alright, next card we have is a really good tech card in my opinion. It's going to be Sakura Pure White Dress. So when you play this card from your hand onto the stage, you look at the top card of your deck and you either mill it or you keep it there, and that can be good for so many effects. It's good for the change effect, which we'll talk about just a little bit later. It's good if you top check a climax and you're like, well, I don't want this to be buried all the way in my stock, so I'll just mill it right now. You can use it to help your brainstormer get a little bit closer to hitting those climaxes. It's just such a good card for knowing exactly what you're doing. You can even use it to fix your trigger checks to make sure that you're doing like the right amount of soul damage. It's just a really good effect. Not only that, it is free, which is also a really good thing. Second effect on here is when you play a climax card, you can pay 1 stock and look up to the top 4 cards of your deck. Choose pretty much a character from among them, because all of them are Tomoeda or Magic, and then add it to your hand. And this is just really good because it gives the deck a lot of filtering. It allows you to go through cards really quickly, especially if you're out of climaxes. And I think it's just a really good effect because it lets you choose up to 4. So you don't have to go the full 4. If you have, like, let's just say you have 3 cards out on your front all ready to attack, and you've got just a bunch of cards in deck, you can fix it. So let's say you have 8 cards in deck, for example. You can play this card, use its effect, bring yourself down to 4 cards in deck. That way you can just attack with a 3 if you know they're all characters or something like that. It's just really, really good because it allows you to pick any number between 1 to 4 and allows you to stop if you need to. So I just think it's a really good card, and it's got a lot of great utility for the deck itself. Next card we are going to talk about is Sakura, Sudden Showers. So this is going to give 500 power to something at the beginning of your Climax Phase, and then you can pay 1 and rest itself to salvage Brainstorm. So again, mill the top 4 cards, or not, I'm sorry, not mill. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put them in a waiting room. If there are any Climaxes among them, you get to salvage a card. And this can be very important because at a certain point of this deck, you're going to need the hand to be able to do anything. So this can become very important to making sure that you have like an adequate supply of cards in your hand to do very important things, mainly the change combo. So it's just a really good tech to have. It's going to be one of your main back row supports for the early game, and it's just a really solid card to have all together, especially if you like top check with that pure white dress. It's a Climax, and it's like, well, I can hit something off of this Brainstorm. So it's just a really good ability in my effect, and it's always pretty staple for a deck to run at least one Brainstormer and roughly 2 to 3 copies of it. Next card we're going to play is Tomoyo. This is the deck's Asuna's Married Life, where it gives 500 power to the 2 lanes in front of it, and then when you play a Climax, you can give a character plus 1,000. This is really good because, again, this deck doesn't really have a lot of huge powerhouses. It has a hard time getting really kickstarted until level 2, where you could start doing change combos. So having this additional plus 1,000 is really good, especially to get off your level 1 combo because it's on reverse. So just a solid back row card to have to fix some damage, because if you play a Climax, all the Climaxes for the most part are, or at least the ones you're going to want to play, are 1k1. So you do a 1k1, gets plus 500 just from the assist, and then plus another 1,000 from the effect, and that brings you up plus 2,500, a very solid number to be at, especially if you are planning on running things over. Next, we have the Regretable Promo, which is the classic, when you play this card from your hand, pay 1 stock, discard 1 card from hand in order to search your deck for 1 card. It really is nasty that this is a promo card because I would argue you need this to run the deck. It is absolutely necessary. This particular deck has a problem filtering cards, meaning that if you have a hand full of like 5 Climaxes, you need to be able to just remove all of them from your hand. So that's either by like over excessive drawing, which is not exactly a very common thing. There's no draw-drop kind of combos in this deck. So this is a way of getting that out when you have a bunch in hand, because you can drop a Climax from your hand, where most of the cards in the deck say you have to drop a character. So it's just a very good card, staple effect to have, because it lets you get exactly what you want when you need it at the cost of 1 card in hand and 1 card in your stock. But that 1 card that you fish out with this effect can be absolutely crucial to your deck running the way that you want it to. And for that reason, I played 2 of them. Someone told me I should bring it down to 1, but it'd be kind of ironic if the card that you use to get any card that you want needs to have resources spent just to get it. So I usually like to play 2 of the drop searchers in case I clock one, or in case I, stock it or something like that. So that's our level 0 lineup there. Next up, we play 4 copies of the Sakura Got You Covered. This is our level 1 Climax combo. So this card gets plus 1,000 power if all the other characters are Tomoe or Magic, which they all are. So it's effectively a base 5/5. And then the Climax combo, when you play it with the Yellow Wind Lunch Break Climax, it's going to have the on reverse search your deck for 1 card effect. Very standard stuff. Honestly, it's not an impressive Climax combo. It's a very old Climax combo, and the fact that it still needs to have that on reverse effect can be pretty punishing, because the card with the 1k1 Climax, the lunch break that it climaxes with, it brings it up to 6/5 without any sort of background support. And 6/5, while it is like a solid number to run over things, you run into the problem of if you have something that's like 7k, you're not getting over that. So 6/5 is just really weak. to need the reverse effect can potentially be really weak, and this is why you want to get to level 1 first. That's another good thing about the Sakura card that I didn't mention earlier, is that you can clock yourself, and if you're at like 0-6, you're ready to have your level 1 combo go off. You want to get it at level 1 first, because again, this card isn't very strong, so you can use that level 0 Sakura card to clock yourself, bring yourself to level 1, get your combo off, and +3 or plus whatever have you. So just another good thing about the Sakura card that will, if I remember, I'll talk about it again later. But as your level 1 Climax card, again, you want this to be readily available without you spending too many resources on it, so you play 4 copies of that one. Next card we play is going to be the Mini Sakura Pink Dress. So this is a really solid card to have in today's format, just because a lot of combos are on reverse. You get to do something. So to be able to bring this card out, pretty much say like, oh, hey, Aaron, you're not going to be able to get your mobility gears. Oh, hey, Chica, you're not going to be able to get your reverse salvage. So it's not crucial to have this out, but I think it is kind of important to have the option there, because sometimes you run into a scenario where you don't have your level 1 combo ready in hand, you don't know really what to do, so you can play this card, kind of stall it out, kind of prevent your opponent from plussing off of you, and this really requires that you kind of know your matchup, because if they have like a combo that says when this card attacks, this doesn't really matter. So that includes sets like the Zekken Yuki from SAO, it includes the Amelia from ReZero, so just be careful not to just play this card randomly, because it does cost stock, and that can be very important to do things like get your change out and whatnot. So because it's not really a necessary card, I only played 2 copies of it. It's really my level 1 fall through in case things don't work out the way I want them to. Next card we play is a level 1 cost 1 2000 backup. When you use this card's backup ability, mill the top 3 cards off your deck. Again, it just kind of pairs with other things in the deck that kind of thin the deck down in case you are like out climaxes, you have like 8 in your waiting room, and you've got like 32 cards in deck, and you just need to burn through things really quickly. So this can get you there a little bit faster, and it also beefs up your characters, keeping them alive more often. So overall, just a solid one of tech to have in this deck. Alright, moving on to our level 2 combos. Our level 2 cards. So here we play pretty much the staple that keeps the entire deck together. 4 copies of the Sakura Kinomoto card. So this card is very good for a change card. So what it is, it's a level 2, cost 1 stock to pay it out, but when you play this card, you top check the top card of your deck. If it is a level 0 or a level 1 or a Climax card, it immediately goes to your stock. So you can essentially get this out for free if you know exactly what the next card is, and that's why it pairs so well with the Sakura White Dress, because the Sakura Pure White Dress lets you top check. If you know it's a level 0, level 1, level Climax, whatever, you can play this card, and then you know immediately that you're going to be playing it for free. It's a nice way of kind of fishing out climaxes that accidentally got in your stock from the last turn, and it's a really good first effect, because you can get it out for free, and then with the change effect, you're effectively getting out a level 3 at level 2 for 1 cost and 2 cards from hand. So moving on to that change ability, at the beginning of your Climax phase, you can pay 1, drop 2 cards from your hand, and add this card back to your hand in order to get one of the level 3 Cardcaptor Sakura cards from your waiting room, and replacing this card with that card from your waiting room. So that, if I remember correctly, because I'm not reading off the card itself, you can replace it with Cardcaptor Sakura Gayle, Siege, Reflect, or Record, which are really good options, and because it allows you to choose, it's really good. It lets you kind of play the level 3s out when you need them the most, and it is pretty much the most important part of any Cardcaptor Sakura deck, which is why we play 4 copies of it. The big problem with this card is that it does require you to drop 2 cards from hand, so if you're not ready with the stock, if you're not ready with a hand size by level 2, you can run into quite a bit of problems, and ideally you want to get 2 of these out at level 2 and set up like a dual record lane or a dual reflect lane. So again, staple part of the deck, absolutely necessary, and for that reason we play 4 copies of it. Next up, we play 1 copy of Cardcaptor Sakura Lucid. So this is going to be a 2-1 that gives 1,000 power to all of your Tomoe or Magic characters, which again is the entire deck. And then you can rest this card to give one of those characters plus 1,000 power and hexproof until the end of your turn. So quite a few things about this card that are solidly noteworthy. First one, it is a global 1,000 power, meaning that this is definitely a solid back row card to have, especially if you need to run things over, or you know you're about to play a backup and you need that extra power to prevent your level 3s from getting reversed. And not only that, but you can rest this card to give something even more power and then give it hexproof. The trade-off for that is that this is going to happen during your main phase where you have to rest this and then give something hexproof, but unfortunately the change effect happens at the beginning of the climax phase. So you won't be able to hexproof your changed level 3s the first turn you get them out, which is sort of problematic, but if they can survive one turn, you can hexproof them, prevent them from being like winded, or prevent them from being anti-changed. So pretty solid stuff. I think it actually doesn't affect wind because wind is on your opponent's turn, so I take that back actually. But the plus 1,000 power is solid. Giving something else 1,000 power and hexproof is also just a nice little benefit, and it helps you get your level 1 combo off again if you're at like level 2 or something. They played some garbage level 0 just to crash into you or just to you know, attack an open lane or something. It lets you get this off a little bit easier because now this card that requires an on reverse effect gets plus 1,000 power more, and that's pretty solid. Moving along, we play one copy of Sakura Stunned. So this is going to be a green 2-1 backup, and it gives, let me double check, 2,500 power to a card, and then you can pay 2 and put one card from your stage into the waiting room to send an early out from your opponent's stage into the waiting room. So this is pretty much, if we can't get our level 3s out to counter their level 3s, it is the anti-change. It is a really solid effect, especially if one of the cards that you're going to discard, it's already reversed. So it's no big deal to discard it because it was about to get discarded anyways. So really solid effect, and with the meta nowadays, everyone is playing early outs. Like everyone and their moms and their moms' moms and their pet Fidos are playing early outs. So it's very important to find a way to counter those early outs, and every deck, as far as I know, plays one anti-change just to prevent things like Love Live Sunshine, things like Cardcaptor Sakura, things like Sword Art Online, just to prevent those things from like bodying you really, really early and you not being able to have a response to it. Alright, next up, we play what is arguably one of the best level 3s available in the Cardcaptor Sakura set, which is Cardcaptor Sakura Reflect. Now, this card is pretty much your level 3 game. It is what you are aiming for in case you're falling behind and you need to change into it from that level 2 we talked about earlier. It's so good. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the effects. So if all the other characters you have are Tomoe or Magic, it gets plus 2,000 power, so it's effectively an 11k just because, again, all of them are Tomoe or Magic. The second effect is the character facing this card gets -1 soul, so getting this out as an early out is pretty sweet because most of the things that people are playing at level 2, if they're not playing early outs, are pretty much just giant 1 soul attackers. And if you swing into this thing with a 1 soul attacker and you don't trigger, you're not playing a climax, you're not getting any damage, and it just blocks the damage. It's just really good for stalling the game in case you fall behind, and it's really good for the next effect. So the next effect is when you play the Release Reflect, I think is the name of the card. When you play the Release Reflect Climax combo, this card gets a slew of abilities until the next turn. So for the current turn, it gets plus 1,000 power, and then for the next until the end of your opponent's next turn, it gets the following powers. During this card's battle, you cannot receive damage by auto effects of your opponent's characters. And while that seems like, it seems like a small amount of text, it blocks a lot of meta items. It blocks Yos, it blocks Mikasas, it blocks like Last Shot Shinon. It blocks Bang Dream, like it blocks the level 3 Yukina. It's just so good if you're able to tri-lane this at level 3 and your opponent's at level 3, because odds are all they want to do is just hit you for damage. Like, they're falling behind, they start to realize that, and then you play 3 copies of this, and then you play the Climax, and unless they can wind you somehow, like with Persona 5, you are pretty much taking just almost a basic amount of damage, which is going to be, let's say you're playing against Attack on Titan, with the Mikasa Climax, you're getting hit for one damage, and then, you know, if they reverse you, they can get another one. But not to delve into it too much, essentially you're blocking yourself from taking a lot of damage, because a lot of level 3 combos are like on reverse, and they're also auto effects. So to have this 11k out, just standing around, making sure that you're not getting swung at by just random small things, is really good. I forgot actually about the second effect from the Climax combo. Or I'm sorry, the third effect, I guess. When the character facing this card attacks, you may deal 1 damage to your opponent, and that is just phenomenal, because it can end a game on your opponent's turn. Like, this is like one of the equivalents of, you've activated my trap card, because they can ping themselves. Let's say they're at like 3-4, they can ping themselves 3 times if you have this tri-lane, and then you just end the game right there. So it makes them be kind of careful about how they attack. It includes frontal attacks and side attacks, so even if they're just like, okay, maybe I'll try and chip away with a side attack, no, you're still going to be eating that 1 damage if you got this card's Climax combo out during your turn before your opponent's. It's just really, really good. It's sort of like anti-meta, in my opinion, because a lot of meta things, again, are auto effects that are going to do extra damage to you, and this prevents it, even if it gets reversed. So it's like it did its job. It prevented you from getting hit by 2 damage twice. It prevented you from getting hit by a Musashi. It prevented you from getting hit by Mikasa's, you know, burn 1 damage again. It's really, really good, and for that reason, we obviously play 4 copies of it. Next up, we play the Tomoyo Enamored Friend. This is pretty much going to be kind of a weird mix of Vice Commander Asuna and Musashi put together. So, let me see. I don't think I'm getting a good focus on this card. Let me see if I can refocus this camera here. Okay. So, this card, when it attacks, you can pay 1 stock and put 1 card from your hand into the waiting room to give everyone plus 500 power and then 1 soul. It's good for like fixing damage, especially if you have like just a bunch of level 1s out. They're not really doing a lot of damage. You play this effect, and then they are doing 2 damage each without any sort of triggers or climaxes, which can be used to just finish a game if you know that the deck's opponent is super fresh, there's no climaxes in there, there's no way they're going to cancel the damage, so you can just swing in with some garbage level 1s and then deal the damage you need to in order to win. The second effect is the Musashi effect. For when this card is played, it gets the following effect, where when you attack your opponent, if the damage is cancelled, you mill the top card of your deck and deal X amount of damage, where X is equal to the level of the card that was discarded from the mill plus 1. And this is essentially for sure gonna stick some damage. It's kind of random, but it can go anywhere between 1 to 4 additional points of damage, which can be just painful against a deck, because it makes sure that at least one of these attacks is sticking. So if they're at like 3-4 and you want to make sure the next one sticks, very, very solid choice in order to get that out. And that is why we play 2 copies of it, in case we can't get out our reflects, or if we don't do a good job with our records, which is the next card we are going to talk about. So I could argue you could build an entire deck around this card. Its Climax combo is really, really good, but unfortunately we don't play it in this deck, so I'm not going to go over it. So this is another one of the change targets, where it gives all the other Tomoeda or Magic characters plus 1,500, so it makes it like good support because it beefs up your reflex. And then the third effect there is when you reverse your opponent, you can discard 2 characters from hand in order to clock shoot it. So this is kind of weird, because between this and the Tomoyo Enamored Friend that I just showed, that's your finisher. That is how you attempt to finish out the game by either clock shooting for the exact amount of damage or hitting them with the Tomoyo Enamored Friend in order to make sure you're having some damage stick. It's really solid because you can get it out at level 2 and beef up more things to make sure they can't get run over. You can attempt to make like a level 1 be able to overcome a level 3. So it's just a really good effect to have that and to be able to beef up your own characters and to be able to clock shoot if you really need it. Next card we're going to talk about is Cardcaptor Sakura Gayle. So this is going to be one of your change targets pretty much. You're not going to attempt to play this out at level 3 unless you really, really need to. And I was sort of hesitant about this card at first, but I completely understand why it's played. So we're going to ignore the second effect because we're not using its Climax Combo. But when this card is placed on the stage from either your hand or by a change effect, you look at up to the top 3 cards of your deck. So keep in mind, just like with the Pure White Dress, it says up to the top 3 cards of your deck. You pick one among them and then you add it to hand. And this is really the only way you're able to fish out the Reflect Climax combos to make sure you're getting it off at level 3 to prevent yourself from getting hurt so much. Because this card allows you to fish out climaxes. Siege has that inherent ability where it's draw 2, drop 1. And the Reflect deck just needed something like this to make sure its engine is a lot more consistent. So that's why I play one copy of this. Because odds are you can get it in the waiting room with very little resources. You can use the milling effect of the Sakura. You can use the Climax effect of the Pure White Dress. You can discard it with Sakura Amphibian Apparel. So there's so many ways where if you get this card in hand, you are able to discard it in order to make sure you're able to change into it. To finish up our character lineup, we play one copy of Kiro. And I know this isn't exactly the best card, not by a long shot, but it does serve an important purpose where you can, so when you play this card, you pay out the 2 stock, whatever, you can discard one card from hand. Is it a card? Yeah, one card from hand to take the top card of your clock and then put it into your stock. So you're getting this card out pretty much for -1 from hand and -1 stock, which is pretty solid. And then the second effect is that when this card attacks, you can choose one of your Tomoeda or Magic characters, and it gets plus X power until the end of turn, where X is 500 times the number of Tomoeda or Magic characters you have, making it being able to go up to plus 2,500, which can be important for just making sure you run things over, prepping yourself to be able to use that Cardcaptor Sakura Reflect in order to clock kick. So very solid card, and at the very least, I feel like every deck should be playing at least one healer card, because that one damage can save you a lot of trouble if you know what your matchup is, if you know what to expect. So I think it's a pretty solid card to have, because it also lets you get out other level 3s at somewhat of a discounted price, because you get to stock soul, or I'm sorry, you get to clock stock is what it's called. So I think it's a pretty solid level 3 to tech a 1 of. Next, we play 4 copies of the Release Reflect, which is going to be the Gate and a 1k1. And then we play 4 copies of Lunch Break, which is the Wind, and then also a 1k1. So that is the deck profile. So now I'm pretty much going to talk about certain things that you can do with this deck in order to kind of get the desired outcome, get exactly where you need to be. So I'm going to kind of keep these sorted by level, because it's going to help me kind of just go through some of the general strategies. And we will put the climaxes pretty much off to the corner because we don't really need them anymore. Alright, so what are a few things that this deck does well? So like I was saying, you have this card here, which is really, really solid. So let me set up a somewhat of a game state where this card can be really good. So let's say you have the level 1 and you have like 2 in hand, for example. You have the climax in hand, so you're ready to go with your turn pretty much. And then let's say you have like 5 cards in your clock at the beginning of your turn. So for example, like that. Let me zoom it so it's not as badly focused. Okay, so let's say you're setting up with something like this. You've got like these in hand, and let's make like a fake deck just to kind of illustrate the point. So you're here. You're at level 0. It's turn 2, whatever. and you're sitting like this. So you draw for the turn, then you clock, and then you grab 2 cards. And then you're kind of at this weird spot where you're not really able to... Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. There you go. That's how we do this. So you're kind of at this weird spot where it's like, I'm almost level 1. I can almost get that Climax combo off, but I'm just short. So what you'll do is that you'll play the Sakura, mill the top 2 cards of your deck because that's mandatory, and then you pay 1 stock, clock yourself, level the card that you need to, and then, again, this was in the waiting room, so you fish this out, and boom, you're good to go. Move this back, tri-lane it, super good, +3, very, very solid, because you want to control when you get to level 1, because again, this deck does not thrive well without cards in hand, because of all the discarding you have to do for like the clock shoot, for the change, so there's a lot of discarding going on with this hand, or I'm sorry, with this deck. So you need a way to keep replenishing your resources, and this is a good way of doing that. And that's just like one combo that I use in order to get to where I need to be with this deck in order to you know, get my pluses off of my level 1 Climax combo. So another pretty solid thing about this deck, so I'm gonna pull out the level 2s. I'm gonna make some, I'm actually just gonna shuffle real quick and then just get a random hand out. But I'm gonna load it just a little bit, just so this example makes sense. Okay, so let's say I've got this. I'm gonna grab that card, and then I'm gonna put this on top. Okay, and then let's just say we have like 3 stock, whatever. So we're looking like that, and then like this is our hand. Sure, whatever, no big deal. Okay, so what we're gonna do when we have something like this is actually one more card just to demonstrate it even further. Let's see, I want to have record, and then I have to be like level 2. I forgot about that. That's pretty important. Okay, let's say this is like our game state right here. We have these cards in our hand. We are at level 2. We've got like somewhat of an okay stock. But you know what? You want to try and save that stock as much as possible. So what you can do is you can play this card. Boom. Play the card. Top check. You know it's a level 0. You're about to play your change. You know you can get that the level 2 card out for free if the top card is a level 0, a level 1, or a Climax. So you say, you know what? I'm going to keep it there. Then you're going to play this. Pay that one out. Top check. Boom. You knew it was a level 0. Stocked. Bam. Done. Good. You got this card out for free, and then during the beginning of your Climax phase, you can pay the 1, then you can drop 2, and keep in mind that the level 3 that you're going to change into can be one of those 2 cards. So again, I paid out the 1, I dropped the 2, there were no other level 3s in this waiting room for me to play, so I'm going to add this back to hand, and then we are going to get that out. Boom. Very solid, very good. And in my opinion, it's definitely a really good effect if you're able to get it out that way. And not only that, but because this card adds back to hand, it makes it a little bit easier to chain that combo. So let's say we've got something like this. Let's say we've got a second one of this. And I'm just going to create like a fake game state for now, just to kind of illustrate my point here. And then let's say we've got, where's reflect? So we're gonna dual reflect this one here. So let's put this in the waiting room, just to emphasize our point. And then let's stack the top 2 cards of the deck, which is kind of just not good, because it's like you have to run into this scenario. But it's just a way to be able to play the deck. Okay, so again, you're level 2. You've got like a sort of adequate enough stock, but it's like 4 is really not too much, especially since you're at level 2 and you kind of want to start setting up for a tri-lane of reflect. But let's just say you're behind. Let's just say you're level 2, they're at level 1. You don't know how you got here. I mean, it's always like that. We don't really know how we got here, but we end up here. So what we're going to do is that let's just say we drew, we clocked already. This is our hand after clocking. Play this card, top check. Okay, level 0, you know what, we're going to leave it there. Then we are going to play this card. Bam, pay 1, drop 1, or pay 1 to top check. Level 0, goes to stock. Played it for free. Nice. Alright, so we'll just cycle it again. So we'll do that. Pray it's a level 0 or lower. Okay, fine, Climax. Counts as a level 0. Bam, played it for free. Very, very solid to get those 2 cards out really, really easily. And then let's just say we wanted to attack again, play that card there, and we're left with a hand of 3, and this is our board state. This is essentially our board state. So we go into our Climax Phase. We're going to pay 1. So that's a good thing about the effect. You can pay it out immediately. So if it was a Climax, you pay it out with a change effect, and it's already in your waiting room. Good stuff. And then you discard 2, add this back to hand, and this sets you up for this card. So in case you don't really have the hand, remember that you add this back to hand after you use it. So now we're going here, and then it's just like, oh, well, now we have 1 more card in hand because we brought this back to hand, so we just do it again. Pay 1, drop 2, add this to hand, get out our Reflect, and with this we're able to slow down the game state unless they're going to keep triggering climaxes, or unless they've, not triggering climaxes, triggering soul triggers or playing climaxes. So this slows down the game in a way that benefits you, so that you're able to kind of survive a little bit longer. So that's pretty much like the 2 main combos I use for this deck. Everything else is like you kind of just have to like see if you need to be compressed or anything like that, and just use the cards appropriately. I know there's quite a bit of ways to do this, so if you have any questions about it, please honestly feel free to ask in the comments below, because I've played with this deck a little bit. Most of it's just kind of been like shadow playing, just making up like scenarios where I'll be playing this deck. But let's go into a few things that I like about the deck. So what I like about this deck is that it has a lot of good ways for, if you are out of climaxes, to go through your deck very, very fast. So the Brainstormer there gets you out really fast. The level 1 backup, it mills 3 cards. The level 1 Climax Combo compresses you even further. The level 0 Sakura mills the top 2 cards of your deck. The Sakura Pure White Dress mills the top card of your deck if you needed to, and then when you play a Climax, you pay 1, look it up to top 4, so that's an instant plus, and you're also filtering out cards. Just super good. The Drop Searcher lets you compress your deck again. And I think that might be it in terms of like compression. But it's honestly just really good. 6 ways of filtering cards out. Filters out 4, filters up to 4, gets 1, mills 3, mills 2, gets 1. It's like, it's so good to be able to mill through your deck really, really fast in case you need to refresh before your opponent starts hitting you for damage. Let's just say you're about to go into level 3, they're about to go into level 3, and all your climaxes are out, and you've got like 12 cards in your deck, and they're all just characters. Brainstorm, it's empty. So, -4, you're at 8. Play this. Mill up to 4, whatever, add 1 to hand, mill the other 3. Not mill, that's not the appropriate turn. It's look up to top 4, add 1 to hand, drop the other 3. My voice is getting like really hoarse because I've been talking for a long time. And then you've got like 3 attacks left, so then you go 1, 2, 3, and then you're down to 1 card in deck from 12, just from using your options to get through your deck a lot faster. So that's one thing I like about this deck, is that if I was ever caught in a bind, I was able to use my resources to get closer to refreshing, so that I'd have all my climaxes back in my deck in order to cancel if I really, really needed to. Another thing I like about this deck is this. Like, honestly, tri-laning this when you know what your opponent's playing is just honestly broken. Like, if you know that they've got some sort of auto effect that they're going to attempt to hit you with, this is amazing. This is a good way of pretty much saying, like, you know what, I'm not going to let you get your effects off. I'm not going to let you, like, hit me with that tri-lane Mikasa. I'm not going to take all that damage. I'm not going to take your last shots. The only trade-off to this that kind of sucks is that you have to tri-lane it, because if you have something like this even, they will attempt to just go after this card with the on-reverse effect, and then essentially they can, you know, not worry about the on-reverse effect with these, because they'll just play something else. So that's just a big thing. A big problem is that if you're not tri-laning this, you can run into problems. And as you can imagine, being able to tri-lane this requires quite a bit of setup, maybe even starting at level 1 by clutching this into your hand. And also, this card isn't very strong on its own. So with the Climax card, it's going to be up to 13k. With backups, it gets up to like 14-5. But sometimes it's still not enough on your opponent's turn. So that's why I play this one tech of, just to give everything 1,000. So it makes everything pretty much a base 12k. And then you can like have backups, or if you have like this in the back already, it's like these are getting plus 500. So that's how I kind of get over the fact that most level 3s, especially some early outs, get up as big as like 13k or get up to like 15k sometimes, depending on the deck you're playing. So that is why I play that back row support. But again, you want to tri-lane that reflect in order to prevent any sort of auto damage from happening to you. It blocks Musashi's too, so that's really, really good. So that's why another reason I like this deck, just to have that super negate. It slows down the game if you're behind, because it's like -1 soul. Well, you better have ways of getting over -1 soul. Otherwise, your lane is not hitting this, or like you're just gambling in order to hit me with a soul trigger or something. It's just really, really good to prevent yourself from getting hurt and to slow down the game until you really need it. And then at the very end, you can like Musashi, and then like maybe dual Musashi if you want, clock kick. Just really solid stuff. And it's definitely some things I like about the deck. Another thing I like about the deck is that with the level 3, there's a lot of options. So I know I only have 3 displayed here. There's also Siege, which I don't think is particularly fantastic. But you can go from one level 2 into any of these, which is just really good because it allows you to kind of control your flow of the game. So let's say you need to set up for level 3. You'll change from this into Gayle in order to attempt to get like one of these cards, or to get the Reflect Climax Combo. If you are falling behind, you can change into Reflect to mitigate some of the damage, to make sure that you're not like just eating, just crashing damage. Like your opponent's just throwing down garbage level 0s and trying to hurt you. No, this card prevents that if you're falling behind. Or if you're trying to start like dealing some real damage, you can change into this and it beefs up everything. It makes your level 1 stronger. It makes your level 0 stronger. And it also has clock kick, so it allows you to just kind of push your opponent for more and keeping your center field alive. So that's what I like about this level 2 change, is that you get just so many options. One thing I hate about this deck, and I've ran into this problem so many times, is when you end up with some hand that looks like some variation of this. Let's see here. Like this, where you have just too many climaxes in hand. You have a bunch of stuff you can't play, really. So it's hard because there's not a lot of hand filtering. Meaning that if you have climaxes in your hand, you need to find ways to discard them. The deck doesn't have a lot of that. If you play the Kiro combo, the level 1 Kiro that, if you have 2 other cards, when you play the Kiro card, you draw up to 1 card, discard 1 card from hand. Super good effect. It is a fantastic effect, with the trade-off that odds are you're also playing the level 2 Kiro, and I just have problems with that card in general. So that's one thing I don't like about the deck. That's why I play 2 copies of the Drop Searcher, because it allows you to drop climaxes, which can be very, very important if you are like about to refresh and then you have like 3 in hand. You need to get those climaxes back in your deck. So that's why I play this card. I might consider subbing these out for the Kiros, just so that I can attempt to like draw into climaxes more, or in order to hand filter more. So I might get rid of my 2 copies of that in order to play the Kiros, but I'm not really sure if that's really the direction I want to go, because the Kiro is like super weak. It's not particularly strong. There's the other one. I was like, where is the second one? So I'm not really sure how I feel about it, but that hand filtering can just be absolutely vital for making sure that you are getting those climaxes from your hand back into your deck. Another thing I don't really like about this deck is that the back row tends to be kind of garbagey, because it's usually some sort of weird mix of like this or like this, in case you want to just keep that option to pay 1 and look up to the top 4 cards of your deck just on deck. Or where's the other one? Or this. So this is essentially your back row. These are the cards you're going to be playing for the most part. You might just want to have some things in the back. I'm not really sure like what because I've seen people just crash in with the Brainstormer. So you are going to be just swinging for a lot of damage, and these are really your only viable candidates for back row support. So that's another thing I don't like. I really wish it got like some sort of level 3 Sakura that gave like hexproof to the 2 lanes in front of it. That would have been just amazing. Like, it gives like level assist, so 500 times the level of the character, and then hexproof. That would have just been magical. But I would have argued that also makes it kind of broken. To get like level assist and hexproof, like that would be just really good. Unfortunately, not too many cards like that. I think the only card in English right now, as far as I can recall, is the level 3 Armin from the first set of AOT. Another thing that I don't like about this deck is that, like I was saying, because the level 2 combo requires, the level 2 change requires that you drop 2 characters from hand, it really requires that you're able to set up kind of well with your level 1 Climax combo. So if it gets denied, you can run into quite a bit of a problem, because you kind of need this +3 in order to set up for this. If you don't have this in hand, you got to search it out with the Climax combo. So I feel like this deck relies on being able to plus from the Climax combo or the Brainstormer or the look up to top 4. So you need to be able to have like a healthy hand size, and that level 1 combo is going to get you there. But because it's so weak, it's kind of hard to really have that sort of consistency to always get out the cards in hand, especially if you're playing up against like AOT, and then you get to level 1 second and they got the errands, they're about ready to bounce them to hand. It's just like, it's not a good time not being able to get those searches off. Another thing that I learned from the Springfest tournament is that this deck does very poorly against cards that have inherent wind effect. So that is going to be the Yoshiko from Love Live Sunshine or the Ryuji from Persona 5, the level 3 yellow cards, which on play wind something. So all the Cardcaptor Sakura level 3 effects become useless if they get winded. So let's say I even have like a tri-lane. So let me grab 2 other ones. Boom, boom, and boom. Let's say I have this. Let's say the turn before I played the Reflect Climax combo. And then the next thing you know, the dude dropped 3 Ryujis, bounced these all back to hand, and then I just died. I died right there. Like, the game ended right there because it's like, yeah, I negated all auto damage that was going to hit me, but like, what did it matter if all the cards got bounced back to hand? So it doesn't do very well against decks that play some sort of wind effect. And that could kind of relate to like wind triggers, like Attack on Titan, Yell of Rage, I believe, is a wind trigger. So yeah, it does very, very bad against things that have like the bounce/wind ability. So that is pretty much like what I like about the deck, my deck ratios, everything, some of the strategy that you can use, and I hope it really helped, because this video is definitely more of like a beginner to mid-tier kind of video. It kind of helps people get familiarized with the Sakura deck, and I just feel like there aren't a lot of like beginner-friendly videos on YouTube for how to build decks or why you built them that way. And in my opinion, for Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card, if you really want to build it, there's only 2 real viable builds, with one of them being like the Reflect build that I was talking about, and the other one being the Record build, which is just another talk for another video entirely. But with that being said, that is the end of this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop them down in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer when I have the time. Let me switch this top card. I don't want the video to end with Tomoyo as the top card. You know what? I'm okay with this. I'm okay with SR level 0 Sakura. With that being said, that is the end of this video. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop them down in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer when I have the time. But as always, everyone, until next time, take it easy.